The 99% believe Switzerland, New Zealand, and Iceland are automatically safe when WW3 starts. They're building bug-out plans around World War II mental maps. They think neutral means protected. They think remote means ignored. They're wrong on every count. You've been lied to about where to go when the world breaks. Here's what they're not telling you. There are only 11 territories on Earth that meet all 7 criteria for strategic irrelevance in modern great power conflict. And 6 of them have populations under 100,000, making evacuation there functionally impossible. The popular safe haven lists you're reading? They're 15 to 20 years outdated, written before undersea cable warfare, satellite ground station targeting, and rare earth element competition became primary military objectives. Wrong. Dead wrong. Here's what's actually happening. When China's Eastern Theater Command moves to 24-hour patrol cycles around Taiwan, currently running 48 to 72-hour intervals, you have 96 hours maximum before commercial aviation routes collapse across Asia-Pacific. Not gradually. Not with warning. Insurance underwriters will suspend coverage. Airlines will cancel routes within 2,000 kilometers of conflict zones. And ticket prices will surge 400 to 800% before availability disappears entirely. The 99% think neutrality equals safety. The 1% no strategic irrelevance is the only metric that matters. August 2021, I published analysis stating Kabul would fall within 7 to 10 days of final U.S. withdrawal based on Afghan National Army logistical collapse patterns. It fell in 9 days. The intelligence was open source. The 99% watched the news and were shocked. The 1% were already out. I assessed in early 2022 that Russia's logistics could sustain a Kiev offensive for 14 to 18 days maximum before culmination. I was right about the timeline. I was wrong about assuming they'd withdraw when logistics failed. Instead, they stayed and bled. Lesson: never underestimate how long leadership will feed troops into a failed operation for political reasons. Today, I'm giving you the 7 pillars of strategic irrelevance, the only framework that determines whether you're evacuating to a sanctuary or a future battlefield. Here's how small geographic features cascade into target designation. This is what I call the multiplier rule. Modern warfare has force multipliers that didn't exist in 1945. Satellite ground stations that collect signals intelligence. Undersea cable landing points that carry 90% of global internet traffic. Rare earth element deposits needed for missile guidance systems. Drone staging areas. Even civilian airports become forward operating bases. A nation needs only 2 or more multipliers to get dragged in. Declaration irrelevant. This disqualifies Iceland, NATO member, plus transatlantic cable hub. Ireland, cable landing point, plus EU sanctions participation. Costa Rica, Panama Canal proximity makes it a logistics choke point. Here's what the media is telling you. New Zealand is safe because it's remote. Switzerland is safe because it's neutral. Canada is safe because it's friendly with everyone. Wrong. 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 Here's why. New Zealand sits 2,000 kilometers from Australia, a Five Eyes intelligence partner. It hosts satellite ground stations, undersea cable infrastructure, and food export capacity that becomes strategic in extended conflict. When Argentina invaded the Falklands in 1982, 8,000 miles from the UK, Britain projected a naval task force in 72 hours and reconquered the islands in 74 days total. For 800 people. Distance bought Argentina weeks, not immunity. If great powers decide New Zealand has value, the 2,000 kilometers is 36 hours by amphibious task force, 4 hours by air assault. Let me be very specific about what getting this wrong means. May 10th, 1940, Ford AM, British Royal Marines land in Reykjavik. Iceland, population 120,000, zero military, declared neutral, gets occupied in 6 hours without resistance. British justification, denying Germany a North Atlantic naval base. July 1941, U.S. forces replace British. 40,000 troops occupy a nation of 120,000 civilians. Iceland remained occupied through 1945. Neutrality declaration purchased exactly zero security. Why? Iceland sits on the Gap, the choke point for North Atlantic naval transit. You cannot declare neutrality over geography. And it gets worse. Everyone thinks safety in WW3 is about neutrality, treaties, or historical precedent. Countries that stayed out of past wars will stay out of future ones. Here's why that's wrong. Safety in WW3 is about strategic irrelevance, whether targeting you costs more than ignoring you. Switzerland was neutral in World War II because invading required 21 divisions Hitler needed elsewhere. That cost-benefit equation no longer exists. Modern precision-guided munitions neutralize mountain defenses. Switzerland joined EU sanctions against Russia in 2022. Neutrality compromised. NATO interoperability agreements since 1996 make it a functional alliance member. Let me be very specific about this. There are 7 factors that determine whether a location becomes a target or remains ignored. The 7 pillars of strategic irrelevance. Pillar 1, no forward military value. 0 air bases, deep water ports, or staging areas. Singapore fails. Changi Naval Base hosts U.S. 7th Fleet rotations. Pillar 2, no critical resource choke points. You don't sit on energy transit routes, rare earth deposits, or food export corridors. Panama fails, the Canal. Egypt fails, Suez. Norway fails, North Sea oil and gas. Pillar 3, geographic isolation. Minimum 2,500 kilometers for major power force projection capabilities. Ireland fails, 600 kilometers from UK. Pillar 4, minimal alliance obligations. No mutual defense treaties. Every NATO member fails. Article 5 makes neutrality impossible. Here's the physics. Modern militaries don't invade for territory. They secure capabilities. A satellite ground station provides signals intelligence worth more than 1,000 square kilometers of farmland. An undersea cable landing point carrying 90% of internet traffic is more valuable than a port city. Force projection capability has expanded to 2,500 kilometers with carrier strike groups, 5,000 kilometers with strategic bombers, global reach with cyber warfare. The 99% believe strong economies and political stability indicate safety. The 1% know those metrics make you a target in great power conflict. High GDP means valuable infrastructure to deny the enemy. The correlation is inverse. The better your country looks on development indices, the more likely it gets pulled into conflict. Pillar 5, low electromagnetic signature. No massive data centers, satellite ground stations, or signals intelligence facilities. Iceland fails. Transatlantic cable hub and U.S. Space Force tracking stations. Pillar 6, food and energy self-sufficiency. 80% or higher domestic production. Japan fails. Imports 60% of food. South Korea fails. Imports 95% of energy. Pillar 7, small enough to ignore. Under 10 million population, or under $500 billion GDP. Here's the math. A location needs 5 of 7 minimum to qualify as strategically irrelevant. Most popular safe country lists fail at 3. Switzerland fails Pillar 4, Pillar 5, Pillar 7. Iceland fails Pillar 4, Pillar 5, Pillar 7. New Zealand fails Pillar 4, Pillar 5, Pillar 6. The 1% assess using the 7 pillars and discover the list of true sanctuaries is shockingly short. Everyone thinks air travel will gradually decline during escalation, giving them time to decide. Stop. Let me be very specific about this. Commercial aviation doesn't gradually decline. It collapses in predictable stages over 72 hours. Airlines operate on insurance coverage. Without insurance, they cannot legally fly. The moment a crisis transitions to potential kinetic conflict, underwriters suspend coverage. February 23, 2022, 18 hours before Russian invasion of Ukraine, insurance underwriters suspended coverage for Ukrainian airspace. Airlines canceled routes over Eastern Europe immediately. The timeline is mechanical. Hour 0 to 24. Insurance underwriters suspend coverage. Routes canceled. When China's Eastern Theater Command goes to 24-hour patrol cycles, underwriters will suspend Asia-Pacific coverage within hours. Hour 24 to 48. Airlines cancel routes within 2,000 kilometers of active airspace closures. In a Taiwan contingency, this eliminates Manila, Seoul, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore. Hour 48 to 72. Secondary routes collapse as crews refuse to fly and fuel logistics break down. Airport fuel supplies run on just-in-time delivery. 3 days inventory maximum. Prices surge 400 to 800% for remaining seats. The 99% think they'll wait and see how things develop. The 1% know that wait and see ends at hour 24. And by hour 48, you're competing with 10 million other people who also just figured it out. Most people stop paying attention here. Don't be most people. Safe havens don't stay safe forever. They get compromised through a predictable 4-stage sequence. Everyone thinks picking the right sanctuary is a one-time decision. Research the safest countries, move there, done. Here's why that's wrong. Geography is dynamic in great power competition. Nations that are strategically irrelevant today become relevant tomorrow as technology advances and resource demands shift. The 4 warning signs. Stage 1. Foreign military exercises or visits. Major powers testing access and logistics. February 2023. Chinese survey vessels mapped Equatorial Guinea port infrastructure. April 2023. Reports emerged of Chinese naval base negotiations. Stage 2. Diplomatic pressure to pick sides. Sanctions compliance requests, port access demands. The pressure itself makes the nation strategically relevant. Stage 3. Sudden infrastructure investment from major powers. When China funded a $1.3 billion port expansion in Peru, Chansay Port completed 2020 more. That transformed Peru from ignored to infrastructure asset. Stage 4. Local political polarization around alignment. Referendums on foreign bases, election interference, protests funded by external actors. When you see 3 of 4 stages, your 30-day exit window just opened. At 4 of 4, you're already late. This happened to Cyprus, Diego Garcia, Djibouti. All started as strategically ignored. All became militarized through this exact sequence. The 99% think picking the right sanctuary is a one-time decision. The 1% know you monitor the compromise sequence continuously and have secondary positions planned. So here's where we are. Switzerland. Fails pillar. 4. Pillar 5. Pillar 7. Joined EU sanctions 2022. Neutrality compromised. Iceland. Fails pillar 4. Pillar 5. Pillar 7. Will be occupied by whoever gets there first, exactly like 1940. New Zealand. Fails pillar 4. Pillar 5. Pillar 6. Costa Rica. Fails pillar 3. Pillar 4. Ireland. Fails pillar 3. Pillar 5. Canada. Fails pillar 4. Pillar 2. Every single popular safe haven list fails the 7 pillars audit. The 99% think this timeline. Tensions rise gradually. Diplomatic warnings, weeks of negotiation. Sanctions first. Military mobilization visible on the news. Time to book flights, transfer money, drive to the border. Here's what actually happens. Hour 0. First missile launch or border crossing. No declaration of war. Hour 0 to 6. Social media floods with videos. Official channels deny or downplay. Your first decision window closes. Hour 6 to 12. Airspace closures announced. Insurance underwriters suspend coverage. Airlines begin cancellations. Hour 12 to 24. Bank runs start. ATMs empty. Borders see vehicle backups. 10-hour waits become 30-hour waits. Hour 24 to 48. Martial law declared. Borders close to outbound traffic. Commercial flights canceled across region. Fuel shortages at gas stations. Hour 48 to 72. Internet restrictions. Capital controls implemented. Your ability to move, communicate, or transfer money is now controlled by the state. The decision window is hours 0 to 12. If you're in Singapore when a Taiwan Strait conflict starts, and you wait 48 hours to see how serious it is, Changi Airport will have canceled 60 to 70% of flights. Remaining seats will cost $8,000 to $15,000 for economy to anywhere outside the region. Credit cards may not process due to capital controls or banking system overload. You'll compete with 2 million other foreign nationals trying to exit a city of 5.9 million. If you drive to Malaysia, the Johor Causeway processes 300,000 crossings daily during normal times. In crisis, 50-hour backups, fuel shortages along the route, potential border closure to non-citizens. If you try to wait it out, Singapore imports 90% of food, 100% of energy. Supply chains collapse within 2 weeks if shipping routes close. Prices triple within 72 hours as hoarding strips stores. While the 99% are checking CNN for updates, you need to be monitoring hour-by-hour intelligence and executing pre-planned positioning. The decision is binary. You're positioned before hour 0, or you're managing a nightmare after. Geography is physics. The map doesn't care about your hopes. So what do you do with this information? Last 24 hours. Chinese Eastern Theater Command conducted unannounced live-fire exercises 65 nautical miles from Taiwan's northern coast. Exercise duration, 8 hours. Assets involved, 14 surface vessels, including Type 055 destroyers, 6 aircraft, including J-16 fighters. This happened November 24, 2025, yesterday. Taiwanese scrambled F-16s in response. No shots fired, but exercise concluded after Taiwan's response launched, not before. That's probe and response escalation testing. Last 7 days, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command repositioned USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group to position 180 nautical miles east of Taiwan. Official statement, routine patrol. Actual significance. Cuts response time to Taiwan Strait contingency from 4 hours to 90 minutes. Chinese response. Announced 5-day exercise zone in South China Sea starting November 28th, overlapping with commercial shipping lanes. Both sides are pre-positioning under the cover of routine operations. Last 30 days, Chinese Eastern Theater Command exercise frequency increased from 72-hour intervals to 48-hour average intervals. U.S. tanker aircraft flights over Taiwan Strait increased from 2 to 3 per week to 5 to 7 per week. Commercial satellite imagery shows Chinese amphibious assault ship Hainan conducting repeated deck operations, helicopter landing drills. Russian Pacific Fleet announced joint exercises with Chinese Navy and Sea of Japan, scheduled December 15th to 28. Leading indicators to watch. If Chinese Eastern Theater Command moves to 24-hour exercise intervals, you're at hour -96 before aviation collapse. If 2 U.S. carrier strike groups position simultaneously within 500 nautical miles of Taiwan, that's pre-positioning for contingency operations. If insurance underwriters increase war risk premiums, For Asia-Pacific routes, above 0.5% of hull value. That's the market pricing and conflict probability. If Xinhua releases military mobilization announcements 6 or more hours before Western media reports, that's intentional signaling to domestic population. June 1999, Kargil War between India and Pakistan. Two nuclear powers go to conventional war that almost goes nuclear, and most of the West doesn't even notice until week 3. Initial spark. May 1999. Pakistan-backed forces infiltrate Indian-controlled Kashmir. India discovers intrusions May 3rd. Pakistan denies involvement. Progression. May 26. India launches airstrikes. First use of air power against Pakistan since 1971. Artillery duels across line of control. 500+ casualties first 30 days. Both nations have nuclear weapons. U.S. intelligence estimates 50% chance of nuclear exchange if conventional war continues. Both sides mobilized nuclear-capable missiles. July 4, 1999. Pakistan withdraws under U.S. diplomatic pressure. Total: 63 days start to finish. Approximately 1,000+ casualties. Costs: India lost 527 soldiers confirmed. Pakistan lost 357 to 453 soldiers. Exact numbers disputed. Civilian casualties, minimal due to remote location. Economic impact. India defense spending increased 28% following year. Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, removed in coups October 1999. Military blamed him for backing down. Lessons. Two nuclear powers can fight conventional wars without immediate nuclear escalation. But the threshold is unknowable. Media coverage was minimal until week 3. By then, positioning was impossible. Both sides thought the other would back down. The crisis ended through external pressure from the U.S. Key difference this time: China and U.S. have no neutral mediator both trust. Taiwan contingency has no obvious off-ramp. That's what makes this more dangerous than Kargil. No diplomatic circuit breaker. If Chinese Eastern Theater Command moves to 24-hour patrol cycles, watch Flight Radar 24 for U.S. tanker activity doubling. Watch USNI Fleet Tracker for carrier positioning. Probability: 70%. This indicates 72 to 96-hour timeline to potential conflict. If two U.S. carriers position simultaneously within 500 nautical miles of Taiwan, watch Dryad Global for shipping route diversions and insurance premium spikes. Probability: 80%. This indicates active contingency preparation. If Xinhua releases mobilization announcements 6+ hours before Western media, watch for commercial flight cancellations, fuel prices spiking, bank withdrawal limits. Probability: 90%. This indicates hour zero is within 48 hours. Sources to monitor daily: FlightRadar24.com, http://FlightRadar24.com for military aviation patterns. Dryad Global Maritime Intelligence at dryadglobal.com, http://dryadglobal.com for shipping disruptions. Free reports published twice weekly. USNI News Fleet Tracker at newsusni.org. Fleet Tracker. newsusni.org. Fleet Tracker for carrier positions, updated weekly. Reuters versus Xinhua news release timing. Watch for lag patterns indicating intentional Chinese domestic signaling. Commercial satellite imagery. Twitter accounts. Aurora Intel. Calibre Obscura. Both post real-time analysis of military movements. Misinformation warnings. Ignore social media claims without verification from two independent sources. Ignore government statements that everything is under control. Governments lie to prevent panic. Ignore financial analysts saying markets have priced in conflict risk. Markets are always wrong about timing. Ignore anyone telling you there's plenty of time to decide later. Lock this in. Law number 1. The 7 pillars of strategic irrelevance. 5 of 7 minimum. Audit every location against this, because popular doesn't mean safe. Law number 2, the 72-hour aviation collapse protocol. Hour 0 to 24, insurance underwriters suspend coverage. Hour 24 to 48, airlines cancel regional routes. Hour 48 to 72, secondary routes collapse. Your decision window is hour 0 to 24 maximum. Law number 3, the sanctuary compromise sequence. 4 warning signs: foreign military exercises, diplomatic pressure, infrastructure investment, political polarization. 3 of 4 means 30-day exit window. These 3 laws explain why neutrality is dead, why wait and see kills evacuation plans, and why sanctuary is temporary. Critical: next 48 hours. Audit your current location against the 7 pillars right now. Score it honestly, 5 of 7 minimum, or you're in a future conflict zone. Set up daily monitoring starting tomorrow morning. Bookmark flightradar24.com, http flightradar24.com. Track U.S. military tanker and reconnaissance aircraft over Taiwan Strait. Normal is 2 to 3 per week. Elevated is 5 to 7 per week. Critical is daily or multiple daily flights. When you see RC-135 reconnaissance aircraft flying 24-hour rotations, you're 72 hours from crisis. Bookmark Dryad Global at dryadglobal.com, http://dryadglobal.com. Watch for Asia-Pacific shipping route diversions. When container ships reroute despite fuel costs, that's underwriters pricing in war risk. Bookmark USNI News Fleet Tracker at news.usinley.org, Fleet Tracker, and in http news.uni.org, Fleet Tracker. When 2 carriers position within 500 nautical miles of Taiwan simultaneously, that's prepositioning for contingency. Identify your hour 0 to 24 exit plan today. Where's the nearest airport with intercontinental routes? Do you have cash reserves for $10,000 plus emergency tickets? If not, you don't have a plan, you have a hope. Priority: next 2 weeks. Research secondary sanctuaries that meet 5 of 7 pillars. Likely candidates: Uruguay, population 3.4 million, no alliance obligations, agriculturally self-sufficient. Botswana, landlocked, minimal infrastructure, strategically ignored. Namibia, low population density, no choke points. Establish redundant communication now. Set up signal or encrypted messaging. Test it this week. Liquid assets protocol. Can you convert investments to cash in 12 hours? If your wealth is tied up in property or restricted accounts, you have zero mobility when hour 0 hits. Strategic. Next 3 months. Position before the crisis. If you've determined your location fails, the 7 pillars. The 99% wait for confirmation. The 1% move on indicators, not outcomes. If you are in Singapore, Seoul, Tokyo, Manila, Hong Kong, develop an exit timeline based on Eastern Theater Command exercise frequency. When it drops to 24-hour intervals, execute within 96 hours. Monitor the sanctuary compromise sequence in any location you're considering long-term. Build network intelligence. Find 2 to 3 people in different time zones, monitoring the same indicators. Information speed matters when decision windows are 12 to 24 hours. If you see Chinese Eastern Theater Command move to 24-hour exercise intervals, immediately check Flight Radar 24 for U.S. tanker activity doubling, because Carrier Strike Group repositioning follows within 48 to 72 hours. If you see 2 U.S. carriers positioned simultaneously near Taiwan, immediately check Dryad Global for shipping insurance premium spikes, because commercial aviation insurance suspension follows within 24 to 48 hours. If you see Xinhua release military readiness announcements 6+ hours before Reuters reports the same story, immediately check for flight cancellations beginning at regional hubs, because that timing gap means Beijing is signaling domestic population first. Preparation for imminent action. Let me be crystal clear about something. This is analysis based on publicly available intelligence, satellite imagery, maritime tracking, aviation monitoring, official press releases. I'm giving you the framework to assess risk yourself and make informed decisions in real time. Situations evolve rapidly. You need multiple indicators confirming before acting. But when those indicators align, exercise frequency increasing, carrier positioning, insurance markets responding, the physics takes over. Decision windows collapse from weeks to hours. Here's what separates the 1% from the 99%. The 99% will ignore this briefing. They'll watch it, feel concerned for 48 hours, then return to normal life. They'll trust that Switzerland is still neutral. That distance equals safety, that they'll have time to decide. They'll wait for CNN confirmation, book flights after insurance underwriters suspend coverage, compete with millions for the last exit routes. They'll be shocked when it happens fast. The 1% will audit their location tonight against the 7 pillars. They'll bookmark the monitoring sources tomorrow. They'll set up daily intelligence checks by this weekend. They'll position based on indicators, not outcomes. When hour zero happens, if it happens, they'll already be where they need to be, watching everyone else panic. They won't be surprised because they tracked the progression week by week. They won't be trapped because they positioned before aviation collapsed. Which one are you? Most people won't act on this. They'll watch, agree intellectually, then do nothing. The 1% don't need the 99% to validate the framework. They just need to be positioned correctly when physics takes over and geography becomes destiny. Most people won't figure this out until it's too late. They'll realize, on day 3 of a crisis, that they should have been monitoring these indicators months earlier. They'll understand the 7 pillars framework, while stuck in a location that fails 5 of them. They'll wish they'd positioned when tickets were $800 instead of $15,000. The information was available. The indicators were public. They just didn't pay attention until outcomes forced awareness. Will you? Next briefing. The 72-hour mobilization indicators for major power conflict. What to watch when embassies start evacuating dependents, and how to interpret classified movement patterns through open-source intelligence. When governments tell their own people to leave before telling you, that's your final warning. I'll show you how to see it coming. Eyes open, squad. This is not a drill.